what's up? My name is Daniela and in this video I'm going to do my February wrap-up. In February I read 7 books which I'm really happy about, and now let's take a look at the stats. 4 of them were adult and 3 of them were young adult. 2 were contemporary, 2 were non-fiction, 1 was fantasy, 1 was dystopian, and 1 was a thriller. I gave 1 book 2 stars, 2 books 3 stars, and 4 books 4 stars. I just want to quickly mention that I am changing my rating scale a little bit, in the sense that I want to give 5 stars more sparingly. Basically, I want to move my whole rating system a little bit downwards and use especially 2 stars more. So for now, I just want to make it clear that when I gave a book 3 stars, I still think it's a pretty good book. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about all the books I read in February, and from the lowest rating to the highest rating, and there will be timestamps in the description. First, I want to talk about An Abundance of Katherines by John Green. I started reading John Green only 2 years ago, and I really loved Turtles All the Way Down and The Fault in Our Stars, and I thought that Looking for Alaska was okay, and I wasn't a big fan of his short story in the Let It Snow book. Unfortunately, this book was disappointing for me. It's about a boy named Colin who is a prodigy and who has just graduated from high school, and also he has just been dumped by a girl named Katherine for the 19th time. He goes on a road trip with his friend and they arrive in a small town in Tennessee, and it's about what happens there. One of my main problems with this book was that it was just really boring and also cringy at times. I was reading it for several weeks and only got to page 80, and then I started again, read it in one day, and I had to push myself, although it has only 200 pages. Another problem I had with this book is that I really didn't like the characters. I didn't like Colin or his friend. The only character I kind of liked was Lindsay, but that was about it. Looking back at it, the plot wasn't horrible and there were some cute scenes, like I really enjoyed the scenes in a cave. That was like the classic John Green that I like, but other than that, I really didn't click with the way it was written, and also it might have to do something with the fact that it was written from a boy's perspective, so maybe this is something I just don't like by John Green. Anyway, the few good scenes that I enjoyed didn't outweigh the fact that I wasn't enjoying myself for the majority of the book and I was bored. This just proves something that I have been thinking about lately, and that is that if you love a book by an author, it's totally okay if you don't necessarily love his other books, and so it's me with John Green. His books are just hit or miss for me, apparently, and I still want to read all of his other books to see where they fall. As I said before, I was really close to DNFing this book, although it's very short, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. The next book I want to talk about is Truly Madly Guilty by Liane Moriarty. Sadly, this was another disappointment for me. I'm a big fan of Liane Moriarty's books. I have read Big Little Lies and The Husband's Secret, and I gave both 5 stars. So I'm used to a really high standard from her, and sadly this book didn't deliver on that. This is about 3 couples and their kids who attend a barbecue and something happens there. The 2 timelines alternate between the present time and the past, leading up to that barbecue, and we get multiple points of view. I thought that this book had some structure problems. The structure was built as a mystery as we were leading up to the events of the barbecue, but the lead up was boring, nothing much was happening, and I'm saying this as a character-driven reader, so I really don't mind when there's not that much plot, but this lead up was just too much, and also she used something that, I don't know if it's called like this, but reveal baiting. Like several times we thought that we would find out what happened, but we didn't, and it was pushed off, and like kids were screaming and it was really dramatic and nothing happened for another few chapters, which was kind of frustrating. There was an interesting mix of characters, but I think that they weren't as well fleshed out as in her other books, and I didn't care about them. I had a hard time getting into it because it was so slow, especially in the beginning, and I wasn't invested in the characters or the story. A lot of the characters were unlikable, but what I really liked was how she puts these different characters with various personalities in one room, and she shows how they clash and their interaction. Another thing I like about her books, and what I fortunately found here as well, were some relatable or funny lines or comparisons about social situations. This book also included some commentary on social issues as her other books, so it discussed the decision whether or not to have kids, parenting, childhood trauma, there was hoarding and alcohol abuse included. Then we had complicated friendship, class, privilege and the guilt that sometimes go with it. In the end, I read this in 2 days because I had to return it to the library, so it was good for me that I was pushed to finish this early. I don't think it's a bad book, but it's considerably worse than her other books that I read, so if you've never read Liane Moriarty's book, I would recommend starting with The Big Little Lies or The Husband's Secret and not this one. As with John Green, I still want to read all her other books, but this was a 3-star read for me. Next I read You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. This is a non-fiction about our mindset, about making money and money in general. I listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by the author, and I quite liked her personality. It was funny and she included some personal stories and mishaps. I really liked the beginning where she talked about how making more money can be a good thing, which, like, for some people it's no-brainer, but there is still some stigma about it. But making more money can result in having more time for the things you love and the people you love. You can also obviously make a positive change. It was also thought-provoking in the sense that she talked about how you might think that you have a positive mindset about money, but there might be some unconscious thoughts. Then it got less interesting and it got a bit repetitive and a little bit too cheesy for my taste, like, hey, let's hear this success story and if they can do it, you can do it too, and like say this mantra. So I wasn't the biggest fan of that, but it was still quite motivating, which is one of the things I am looking for when reading non-fiction, so like most of this weren't really informative. The book clearly says that it's about the mindset and not about specific ways how to make money or anything like that. So I think I got some value of it and I liked the voice, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I read The Stranger by Harlan Coben. This is a thriller and we follow Adam, who is living the American dream. He has a great wife, 2 kids, a nice house, but one day a stranger approaches him at a bar and tells him something about his wife. This shakes his world and leads him deeper into the mystery. This is basically told from the point of view of lacrosse dads, and the characters weren't developed much. I didn't care much about them, but the plot kept me interested and I was enjoying myself for the majority of this book. The pacing wasn't ideal and the building of suspense wasn't handled very well, especially at the end of some chapters. The writing felt average, and I'm not that strict about writing. Like, if it's average and like doesn't call attention to itself in either good way or bad way, I'm okay with this. Like, sometimes the writing takes me from the story because it's that good and I appreciate that, but when it takes me from the story because it's bad or because there are some lines that feel ridiculous, that's a red flag for me. I didn't see the ending coming, so that was good, although there was one thing that was annoying me. So like in the first part, Adam gets a text from his wife and he's like, there's something weird about this text, and I was like, I've known this woman for 2 minutes and it's totally obvious what's weird about this text, and like he takes a really long time to figure it out, so that was slightly annoying. Overall, it was a quick and pretty entertaining read. It is somewhere between 3 and 4 stars for me, and since I don't do half stars, I had to decide, and my enjoyment bumped it up to 4 stars, although I don't think that the execution was that good. But yeah, I'm not opposed to checking his other books now. Next I read another non-fiction, and that's Travel Bible by Matouš, Vinš and Petr Novák. So this is a Czech book full of tips on traveling. This book covered a lot. It covered different types of traveling and also ventured into like lifestyle tips on how to be healthy and stuff like that. I think that I wasn't really the target audience because I cared only about a small part of this. Especially what I was interested in was hacks for getting cheaper airplane tickets. I thought that this was a solid book on this topic. It was quite enjoyable to read and I gave it 4 stars. Next up is Insurgent by Veronica Roth. So I'm reading Divergent for the first time this year, and as you probably know, this is a dystopian series about a world where there are 5 different factions. Our main character is called Tris, and I didn't like her very much in this book. I know that she was dealing with PTSD and a lot of stuff was happening, but I just really didn't enjoy how she jumped into random dangerous situations, and I'm not saying that she had it easy or that there were no sacrifices or victims, but it just felt ridiculous how all the things she did turned out to be the right things that had to happen or that helped them in some way. I kind of like 4 as a character, but I didn't appreciate that their romance wasn't really there in this book. Some people may appreciate it, and I know again that it makes sense, but it just lost a bit of the appeal of the series. What I liked is that we got more world building and we got to see life in other factions, and also there was a bit of discussion about the faction system as a whole. There was a lot of action, and I think that it isn't your typical second book in the series because the first one was really introductory, and in this one we got a lot of things going on. The ending was intriguing. I don't know where exactly it's heading and I still want to finish the series. The plot kept me interested, but my level of engagement in the story or in the characters stayed basically the same as with the first book, so I gave this volume 4 stars, same as the first one. And last book I want to talk about is A Stranger Dreamer by Laini. This book is something else, so I think that it's pretty good going into this not knowing much, as I did. It's about an orphan who was raised by monks, and from a very young age he was obsessed with this mythic lost city, and later he becomes a librarian, and his desire is to someday go on a quest and find out the truth about the city. One thing that has to be said right at the beginning is that the writing in this truly is beautiful. It's like a piece of art. It's lyrical, but not to the point of being ridiculous or redundant, and it also was playful and light at some times. I loved the world building, everything felt vivid and magical. I liked what Jiva from The Reader Life said in one of her videos, that this would be really great as an animated series or movie, which is totally true because it would be beautiful, I think. But there is a problem that a lot of people have with this book, and I experienced it too to some extent, and that is that it really is really slow, especially at the beginning or basically the whole first part. So for the first half I was reading it slowly, like a few chapters or even 1 chapter at times, because I didn't feel invested enough in the characters to binge read it. The main character, called Laszlo Strange, really grew on me as his character developed, but I was much less invested in the other perspective, which was by a girl named Sarai. In the second half, and especially in the last third, I was really invested in the story, I was hooked, and the final part was absolutely epic. Considering my overall experience with this book, I can't give it 5 stars, so I give it 4, but I still love it, and it has now a special place in my heart, and I can't wait to read the sequel. And now I'm way more interested in picking up her other series, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, which takes place in Prague, so I'm really curious about that. But yeah, these are all the books I read in February. Let me know if you read any of these and what you thought about them, or let me know what your favorite book of February was, or you can also leave me an emoji to indicate that you were here. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!